May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Anson. Trustee Dorau.
Here.
Trustee Myers.
Here.
Trustee Walshiger.
Here.
Trustee Ludke. Here. Trustee Connor. Here. President Vanderstel.
Here. If you'd all rise and remove your caps, rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Trustee Dorau.
I pledge
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for letting me get up. You're still plugged in, okay. I will apologize to everyone for my inability to get the meeting started right on time. We did have a 2-hour meeting before this that was very important on roads and all kinds of infrastructure stuff, so my apologies on that. At this time, we'll have public comments for any items that are not on the agenda. Anybody that would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda, now would be the time you can move towards the podium. Seeing as there are no public comments for items that are not on the agenda, we will move to the items that are on the agenda. Our first item being a consideration of a motion to approve the village board minutes for the July 8th, 2019, and special village board minutes of the July 11th, 2019 meeting.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for the July 8th, 2019, and July 11th, 2019 meetings. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is a consideration of a motion to approve the vouchers for payments. This is in the amount of $565,323.32.
I make a motion to approve the vouchers list for $565,323.32. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the vouchers for the amount stated. Discussion. Anybody?
A couple things I hear, and Ryan gave me some answers, but there's a couple charges on here for towing for Harley Davidsons, and that was the unfortunate motorcycle accident. Is that something that I know we should pay, but get reimbursed from like your insurance companies for the?
I did talk to Tor, and he said the reason for that cost is because they went into evidence. They weren't towed because they were physically unable. But without Tor here, I didn't get a chance to ask that further to see if we were going to get reimbursed. But it is because they were taken as evidence.
Okay, all right.
Is that something you'd be able to find an answer for Trustee Connor on?
I can.
And also share it with the board?
Yep, I can.
Anything else? Does anybody else have anything? I do want, Chief, could you come and give comment on the, here it just says fire rescue supply, jaws of life, if you want to just comment on that one.
Yes, in our budget this last year, we budgeted for some ultrasounds. I remember we talked about that earlier, and this is an added unit to our fire department. So it's not replacement, it's an added unit.
Okay.
It came to us at a discounted price, and it'll help outfit that ultra-response, fast response truck.
Okay, so this is going on that truck?
Yes, and it's
Okay.
currently on that truck now.
How many do we have currently total, with, including the new one?
Well, I'll have to ask my captain.
If you don't know, you can get the answer later.
I
If
think
you
there's
guys don't
four.
know for sure.
I think I wanted to say 4.
2 complete
But there's-
sets plus 1 extra piece to just looking on that.
And I'm, Chief, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
did not email Chief, which typically
No,
I would like to
I've-
email.
I don't mind it
What
at
does
all.
a set consist of?
Cutters and a spreader. So
Okay,
it would be
so-
a cutter. I'm sorry, I'm talking cutter and saying spreader. So it would be a spreading unit that would be used to spread doorways, spread elevators, spread car doors, raise roofs, steering wheels, anything for entrapment. And a cutter would be to cut any metal that's needed to be cut. It's a big shears.
Okay.
But the unit that we purchased is a combi unit,
Meaning it can do
meaning
both?
it can do both. Yep, it
Okay.
can cut cars and it can spread.
So with the new one, we now have 2 sets, because the combo unit would be considered 1 set. Is that accurate?
I'll add them. I'll get them together for sure because we alternate. We have hydraulic sets and we also have battery operated sets.
Okay.
So the battery operated ones have been used more for going in interior buildings, that kind of thing, or areas, an accident that's a long ways off the road that our hydraulic reels don't reach.
Okay,
So we're trying to think of all possible scenarios that we don't get stuck with somebody
Alright.
entrapped somewhere that we can't get at.
Okay. And then it's my understanding that the originally budgeted, I don't remember what the amount was for the ultrasound.
19,
That-
I have that.
We have
19
kind of foregone, and if you don't,
Yes.
like I said, I'm sorry, I forgot to email you. We have kind of foregone and realized that that's just not necessary. Is that correct?
Yep, we either are not gonna move forward with that.
Okay.
Originally, when trustee Dorau had asked me that in the original budget process last year, we hadn't planned on spending that money if it wasn't needed.
Okay.
And then this sample tool came up, and then we didn't plan on having that new pickup truck.
Okay, no, that's
The
what,
ultrasound machines were scheduled for 16,900.
okay, all right. Okay, that's all I had on that. I just wanted to know how many we had and what we had, so. it
Yes,
sounds like we
absolutely,
have
and
at
I'll
least
get back
two
to you
sets,
with a
but
good
yeah,
quote,
just let
'cause
us
we
know the
carry them on
full
our
amount.
ladder truck, and a set came with the new rescue engine, so we are pretty good. We're gonna be in good shape.
Sorry, I was pointing to Ryan, but I.
Mike,
You got it? Is that off yours?
oh, yeah. Can you take that back by Dave and Mike? Torrin is here. He did say we do not get reimbursed for the motorcycles, but maybe he can tell you the why.
Thank you, Chief Dean.
That's it?
That's,
Anything
I,
else on
that's,
that?
that's the only one I had, and I'm sorry for not emailing you
No,
before.
not
I
a
should've
problem at all,
emailed
and I will
you. I don't
get-
like to catch you off guard, so I did not intend that.
And I'll get back to you on the total steps that we have.
Okay.
Combo spreaders, and explain it in a memo to you. So that
That'd
you
be
know
cool.
what-
Yeah, just when it's getting closer to that amount, it's,
Right, I know, it was an unexpected expense that we hadn't planned on doing, and then when we put this ultra-high
Sure.
pressure pump together with this
Yep.
this truck, we're like, well, what else could benefit the public if we get out there and we get to a car fire, we were able to put the fire up, but we don't have a tool to get the guy out.
Right.
So, and we're waiting for the engine, so.
Are they attached to the trucks themselves, or
Nope,
can they?
they're completely battery operated, the ones that are not hydraulically operated. They're completely self-sufficient on their own, and they'll run for, 60 minutes, hopefully, 30 to 60.
But you train with those on a regular basis,
We
right?
do, yep, absolutely. We've got a very dedicated group of individuals that can cut a lot of stuff apart in a quick amount of time.
thanks, Chief.
Yes.
Chief Misco? There was a question that came up earlier regarding the towing of Harley Davidsons at an accident scene.
Yep, we had a fatal motorcycle accident a couple weeks ago, and as part of that accident, we had State Patrol do a full reconstruction. What they need is those vehicles, we need to secure those for a period of time so that they could do some analyzing of the vehicles. So those were towed at our request, the PD's request, for evidentiary purposes. They weren't towed because of the accident or for anything else, and that typically is the cost to the police department for that investigation.
Thank you.
I have one
Oh.
question also, I'm sorry, not related to
Oh,
Chief.
thanks, Chief.
So sorry. Thanks, Chief. I'm just curious, because I saw it in the expenses, so if they were for bench plates, I'm not debating the amount, I just wanted to know where the plates were for competitive awards engraving.
Where were the?
I'm sorry,
Who's it
page
under?
2,
Okay.
line item 5, under expense description and economic development,
Who's the vendor?
competitive awards
Competitive
and
award.
engraving. I just wanted to know where those bench plates would, which bench were they?
On those.
Got
Like,
it.
what do they
Street
say?
State Program?
Yeah,
benches
like,
that
what
we
do they
have?
say? Yeah, like, I just didn't know where they were, so just
Well,
curious.
this is for the bid.
Yeah, it is.
For the bid?
Those
Okay.
are the nameplates that the businesses sponsored.
Okay,
They're throughout the village.
I'm assuming that's for the,
There's 2
Creation
additional
of those.
plates paid for the bench sponsor. I believe 2 more benches were purchased. We got 2
Awesome.
more donated benches. I believe we have them both here, at least one of them still.
perfect, thank you.
And just if I can touch on it, so that everybody's aware, some people were already on the board, and you guys may already know this. The bid ran a program when they were coming up with the benches. We had decided it was a good idea to make all the benches the same. As you've seen, the old ones have been ripped out. But there's people that I pay, I think it's $500. I think it was $500 or $1,000 to sponsor a bench, and then we put, it sponsors it, but so it helps offset that cost.
Thanks.
Yep. Anything else on the vouchers? We'll call the question. All in favor of paying the vouchers? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. The next items we have are consideration of actions related to the licenses and permits. The bartender's operator licenses expire June 30th, 2020. This is for Brian Coos, Daniel Perry, Henry Pellerine, and Cynthia Lancer.
I make a motion to approve the 4 people as read, 4 bartenders license.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 4 bartenders licenses that expire June 30th, 2020. Any comments? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. The next license we have is a temporary Class B beer license. This is for the Sons of the American Legion, 261 Church Street. This is for the Sal softball tournament held August 10th, 2019. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the tournament is held at the Ha Field.
Also move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this temporary Class B beer license. If there is no other comments, Mike made the motion. I did want to say, I believe sometimes they do use a field at St. Charles. Does anyone know?
Not for this tournament.
Okay, so if it's only at the park, then it doesn't matter. I was going to say, if they were using that additional field, which is touching property lines, if people are purchasing things from the canteen and going watching baseball, I think it'd be appropriate for us to make sure to designate that area as well. But if it's all going to be held right at the Ha Field, then that's how that is. So,
Is that Ha Park, it says?
yeah, which is, it's Bark River Park.
Yeah.
Yeah. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Abstain.
That motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is discussion and consideration of a motion to approve procurement of an armored rescue vehicle for the Suburban Critical Incident Team with an expenditure not to exceed $34,000 by the Village of Hartland. Chief?
Thank you. So last week we did the presentation on the armored rescue vehicle. Lieutenant Pfeiffer was here, gave some additional info. And I know the budget process will be our ultimate approval of what our expenditures were, but I know the request was from the board at the end of that presentation to help us for some guidance to basically say that you're behind the project or not. And that's why this item, this agenda item was brought forward. But our hope was there's a couple different options of doing this, as Lieutenant Pfeiffer discussed. One is there will be a period where we'll be accepting donations. So if the board does approve this tonight, that is an area that I can start moving forward on. The other communities part of this project are also actively, or will be shortly as soon as their board approves, actively working on that piece. Those donations will go towards the overall cost of the vehicle, and then that cost then will be divided between those 9 communities. As Lieutenant Pfeiffer mentioned, the 2 options for us are we can bring that money forward to pay our share, or we could be part of that low-interest government loan that Elm Grove would be basically the fiduciary of and handle. My thoughts are we have a good system in place. I've met with Interim Administrator Bailey with our capital outlay and corporate reserve type accounts where we can actually take that money and then the police department would pay that back over years, which would forego any interest on the Village of Hartland's part of that cost. My recommendation would be to go that route, and we could discuss that further when budget comes, but we would not exceed then that amount of that $34,000, which would be the most that vehicle would be slated for without any donations.
Okay, when you guys talked, I really should wait until it's discussion time, but that's what I'll do. I'll wait till it's discussion time. Thank you, Chief. Did you have anything to add, since you guys were the ones in discussions, though, on
Yeah,
what
so
your
a little bit-
your advice for the village board?
A little bit about what we talked about with the corporate reserve fund. The same as we do any other vehicle, we would take the 34,000 or whatever the donation amount brings it down to. We would pay for that, and let's say the amount was 30,000 that we owed. Generally, with our police vehicles, they have a 3-year life, so we take that $36,000 cost of a police vehicle divided by 3 years. Well, this has a 10 or 20 or 25-year life. We could take that 30,000, pay it back over 10 years to make it $3,000 a year payment, so you could pay it over 2 years, 3 years. It's just paying ourselves back. That way we don't have any interest associated with the
So you're saying it's better off to just pay it? Your
Absolutely.
suggestion would be to pay it right out and not do the low interest loan?
Correct.
Okay. I did have I'll wait till discussion on it, because I'm sure it's gonna get a motion,
My
sorry.
concern was in the presentation. It was very good, and I endorsed the idea of this item, but it was stated that any donations that were made towards this would be going to the total price of the unit. And so that means then that would be divided up for everybody, all the different members. So if we have some people in Hartland, let's say, gives $10,000 as a donation, that does not lower our participation to 20. It takes that down to the overall price of the whole unit. And I think that the individual people that are making a donation like that would have that, you would want to show that, hey, this is from us and for us, and not to share that donation with the whole other outlets. I just think it'd be a concern. And if there's a donation that's made, we've had people that donate fire trucks, you know, in Hartland, not to the county or not to anybody else. And with something like this, a big dollar amount, if there's going to be donations, I would want that money to stay from our people to lower our cost,
Right.
not for, let's say, New Berlin or whatever.
But if we got more than that, then it could go for the overall.
Yes, and if they have
right?
more than we did, and then that 10,000 would fall in the wash, and Jeff's donation of 10,000 wouldn't mean anything.
Is your thought that the reason they're not doing that is some municipalities might raise 60,000 versus if we raised our 34, you would just why keep going type of thing?
Correct, yeah, that was a discussion in our bylaws with the SCIT. It's actual formal agreement that basically incorporates this critical incident team. Each chief is basically the representative from each department. We had a meeting to discuss this and how we want to move forward. That was an item that did come up, and the chiefs overwhelmingly wanted that to be split off the total cost. They felt that was the fairest way to do that. And Trustee Myers is absolutely correct on how that works, is that, say, someone donated from Hartland $10,000, then the vehicle would be $290,000 instead of that estimated $300,000, and then it would get divided by 9. So we would not realize that full $10,000 amount. But it does work two ways, where New Berlin's had early on support of this, and they have already raised quite a bit of money towards this project. So it definitely depends who can raise, but I think that does work both ways, where if we don't get a donation, we still will benefit from the other communities that were. So it is a two-way street when it comes to that. But Trustee Myers was absolutely correct with how that would work.
We did put $25 to it today. We got a donation.
We got an anonymous donation today for $25, as long as you guys support the project.
All right, so even if we did a fundraiser and stuff,
It would
I
go
mean, so
into our
34,000
donation account here, and then, yeah.
We don't have a motion yet, and we really should have the discussion once it's
It should
on
be
the
a positive
table,
one,
so.
I'll make the motion that we approve this.
a second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion?
I just want to add
Anybody
mine,
got-
as we talked at the last meeting, that it's also a benefit for the public and as well as our firefighter, paramedic, EMTs, because as we discussed earlier, the world is getting crazier, and if we have someone down in the line of fire and we can't get to them, this vehicle again would come in handy to rescue that individual. So just wanted to support it.
Mr. President, I think that motion, though, should be made, that's not, yes, it was supporting the document, but about the financing of it? That you would go with the program suggested
We
by
would
the,
pay for it internally.
You can amend it.
but I didn't make the motion.
No, I'm saying anybody can amend the motion.
I said we're going with the program, which
With
is
the
that
program.
set amount of money that's in there.
Yeah,
That's the program.
34,000
So
is
we're
the
going
max
with
that
the
you
county
pay.
program, okay.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be amended.
Chief, I love the presentation. I'm still struggling with the response time of 20 minutes from New Berlin. I've gone through it. I've talked with other departments that are a part of this collaboration, and I appreciate everybody coming together. So I just want to clarify for the public, it's 20 minutes from the moment that an officer is en route. Not 20 minutes with how they have to get there, or how they're going to get up and going, and who's going to respond. So it could be, I just want to make sure I clarify, a longer time.
You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
It's about 20 minutes once they're en route. And again, how the SCIT is set up, it's kind of a sideways U shape where we got the lakes area down to the eastern county line, and then down into your Muskego and McGuanagos. With New Berlin, one, they have a garage where we can then house a 25-year life cycle vehicle. But then two, they have quick access to 94, and then 16 obviously for us, or Brookfield, and then also down south to I-43 to McGuanago. So we picked that kind of center of the U there to have that be the best for all of the communities instead of having it in one far corner or the other. But again, you are correct. It would be upon them basically being en route to our critical incident. And another positive piece is Brookfield, just because of sizes of the departments, your Brookfield, your New Berlins, and your Muskego have the most amount of personnel assigned to that CIT just because they're larger departments. And what's positive about that is they have personnel more likely to be on duty. So literally it would just be driving in off the road, jumping in, and then going right away. So that would expedite any type of response time.
Yep, perfect. That was my next question.
Again, it's not foolproof, but it's playing the statistics or the odds with that.
Excellent.
In that presentation, if I remember right, we said 3 vehicles was the best to have at a situation, correct? And the other closest one is the City of Waukesha?
City of Waukesha.
So City of Waukesha has what's called an MRAP. It's a similar type vehicle, and then the Waukesha County Sheriff has a Bearcat, which is almost identical to what we're trying to
How long
do.
would it take for them to get, let's say, to Hartland?
About the same. I mean, typically, they're larger departments. They have personnel that are trained on duty because they have more people assigned. They have their own teams. Instead of 9 communities dividing 30 to 40 people, all 30 of their tactical operators work for the City of Waukesha. So odds are they would have someone on duty that would, under emergent circumstances, that request would respond and then drive out. So again, it's about a half hour probably between both of those. On a good day, that's a quick response time from both of those. And then also Milwaukee has one, but again, that's double that response time at a minimum.
Can I ask a dumb question? Just for the public, and maybe I don't even know it. How quickly into a scene do you assess that they are needed?
Fairly quickly. Officers on scene do get training, and if they feel that, obviously if someone's, if it's an officer rescue or citizen rescue, that's immediate. Like I gave that example of Sacramento where that officer was shot. It took them 45 minutes to get there with our piece of armor, and they weren't able to effect a rescue for that 45 minutes while she basically sat there and died. So, but that was an immediate, they would be an immediate call out. Or if we have some type of critical incident, someone barricaded or a hostage situation in a call, those are the real easy ones to say, let's get this rescue vehicle out there so we can try to do this, keep the community as safe as possible while we handle the critical incident.
Okay.
And those people involved in the critical incident as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Anybody else got anything? I guess I just want to, well, I'll wait till the vote. If no one has anything, we can, we'll take the vote on this. Yep. Before, I do have something that I want to say. Is this something where, obviously you guys, as the police chief, you think it's very important, so you are not opposed to paying it back from your budget? So you're paying it back to yourselves, but you are not opposed to that? And this is this something that, well, that's all I got.
I am not opposed to paying it back through my budget. I think it's the most fiscal responsible way to do it. Probably the most efficient way to do it as well.
Yep.
If it was a much higher dollar amount, I think it's a reasonable dollar amount for it to be taken out of the accounts that we've mentioned. But if it was a much higher dollar amount, hundreds of thousands of dollars, then we talk maybe about a loan. But something to that dollar amount, which will hopefully be less than that $34,000 mark, depending on how successful we are with donations. I think the most fiscally responsible move is to do it through the budget and not pay interest back on it when we don't have to.
Okay.
I like the idea of New Berlin with all those extra people. I mean, there's always going to be people there. Is there going to be a point, who's going to, of their salary, or let's say we use this thing weekly, and pulling out personnel from a department, is that the association then going to pay in those fees, or there are no fees at all?
Right now, the agreement with the SCIT is that it's under mutual aid. So under state statute does allow for municipalities to build back for mutual aid. But basically what the SCIT has always operated under, because we can't trump state statute. I think we talked about that briefly with that SMART agreement I brought back in front of the board that hadn't been updated for a long time. There was always an understanding that it was always going to be free, that mutual aid would be free. But because those are under emergency situations, I can't tell you of a situation where a community build back a community. It's a cooperative team. These 9 agencies work together, and they understand sometimes you're going to be in their community, sometimes you're not. And it's just a mutual aid agreement. Very similar to what fire does with like their MABUS and their mutual aid agreements. So along the lines of that SMART agreement or that. Now, I only say all of that because state statute does allow for a build back if a municipality would ever go that route. But again, in my career, I've never seen it. And I can't trump state statute, so I can't tell you that will never happen.
So if we were getting the unit, then would there be any officers from Hartland that would be in that so that, to your point, that if New Berlin needed something, our officers would be heading that way as well?
So we currently have 2 tactical officers assigned to the SCIT unit, and then we have 3 negotiators assigned. Negotiators have used the armor before to develop negotiations. So that's also something that can be used, but we would have for sure those 2 the entire operator core of this SCIT unit will be trained on how to operate the vehicle. So we would have 2 operators of that vehicle trained and ready to use it at any time.
Thank you.
You'll make sure that the money works that way, because that's what's been stated, right? Okay. With that being said, does anybody have any other comments? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Hit that button about 8 times, please. Oh. Down, not up.
Thank you, Chief.
With that being raised up 1 foot makes a big difference. And I'm out of shape. Oh. Thank you. Discussion. Next item is our discussion and consideration of a motion to approve contract to resurface and stripe the Nixon Park tennis courts.
I know you feel it.
Oh. It's like heaven.
So as I mentioned in the memo, Nixon Park tennis court needs to be resurfaced, or crack-filled, and then resurfaced and striped. And I put the information in the memo for you. Pembroke will be budgeted for next year for the same process. Nixon Park will also have lines added for pickleball, which has become quite popular.
Okay.
I have a question. I just happened to be out there last Wednesday. We saw with my grandson, they had their school out there at the splash pad, and I was standing next to the tennis courts. I was amazed. I thought, oh, those look really nice. Now, I didn't go and actually look at them to look for cracks, but it looked very nice to me. Is it that bad already?
It's been quite a few years since we resurfaced it last. I honestly don't remember when.
Was it bad? It just, like I said, I was just standing there and I happened to look and I thought, oh, that's a nice looking tennis court.
Let's wait to get a motion before we have a whole bunch of discussion.
Okay.
And that's not, let's just, technically, we really should have a motion before we discuss it at length. You can, you're presenting, or requesting.
So the biggest problem are the cracks. When they're playing tennis and the ball hits the cracks, it does some unusual things. So that's why it's recommended to be done. And Pembroke is in about the same shape.
I'll make a motion to approve the repainting of the Nixon Park tennis courts.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Does anybody have anything?
Yeah, I went there this morning, and I'm kind of with Ann now. I looked at it, I took some pictures. I saw, probably an inch and a half crack that was basically separating the east court from the west court. The east court looked fine to me. The west court, I did see some surface cracks in there. But the one court, I used to play tennis and I thought it looked fine. So I was kind of questioning, number one, the dollar amount, and is it necessarily to do that, or is there ways, as we do when we talk about repairing streets and doing some filling, to hold it over for a year or two and then think about resurfacing it, and also the price. I mean, I don't resurface tennis courts, but that seems kind of high. I don't know if we gotten more than one bid.
We didn't on this one. We are for next year's, getting more prices.
I mean, is it possible to get more bids to see what they come in at? I mean, that just seems a 36,000 when one court looks fine to me. I know you can't do one versus the other, but.
Right. I think the more reasonable approach then would be to postpone it. We're doing budget now.
We can, I mean, this was something that was budgeted last year, so it was one of the items I'd talked to them about just to make sure, because it was something that had been approved in a previous budget to go forward.
It's not currently painted for pickleball now.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Yes.
And it's in our comp plan, in our rec comp plan that we just saw too.
Right.
So a couple weeks ago. Okay.
I mean, there is no harm in waiting till spring or even this fall to get new quotes for next year, and you could look at doing it next spring or see where the quotes are.
Yeah, then I also looked at, and I know nature takes its course, but there's no guarantee, and even put in here, hey, if it could be cracked next year, and so be it. Pretty much, we deal with it.
I think that's a lot of money also, and I think it's maybe money that could go to something that is more, that needs it more.
I think that, did you have anything else? I think one thing that I think, and it has happened a couple of times, we really got to shoot for that number of 3 and try to get 3 bids on things. I mean, I know it was approved in the budget, and I do appreciate it getting on, it's on the agenda to talk about, because these are all improvements that we need to make, or at least at some point in time, we thought we needed to make them, but we really need to try to get multiple bids, because that's what lets us know that everybody's in line.
Yep.
And especially with a tennis court, and I'm just going to say it now, we redid Nixon Ballpark, and now we're slated to do the other ones. That came in much under budget, great. But if you really think about it, I mean, they redid that entire infield, scraped it down, redid it. Now, yes, there was a lot of donated materials, but think of the amount of work that was done on that. I think that there is a chance that we might be able to get, if people know they're in a competitive situation, I think they bid different. So I would definitely, I couldn't, without seeing other bids, I couldn't say I don't know if it's high or not, but without seeing other bids, I just couldn't.
Yeah, I would concur as well. I'm wondering if, I think I just heard that it was slated, another Park Pembroke was slated for next year. Is there an opportunity to look at both of them being done to lower the cost by having all of them done at one time? Is that, I don't know if that's a possibility.
We'd have to pursue that in the proposals.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to look at some options if you could. I mean, I don't want to tell you, if you come back and say, hey, it's really got to be done, then we got to do it. With it not being like a road surface, if 90% of it is good, but there's some areas of cracks, is it possible? Because like I say, no one's renting the tennis courts. It isn't like the ball fields or even the splash pad or our pavilions. Those people are paying to use those above and beyond the taxes that they pay. I think that with the tennis courts, that's more of a convenience that we put there, and they are very nice to have. So we want people to play a good game of tennis on them. Is there other options that can make it lower, or all of a sudden we're coming, we want to utilize the tax dollars the best we can. So it's been moved and seconded. Anybody have anything else? All in favor? All opposed? Aye. That motion does not pass.
So we'll include it in the 2020, 2021 capital projects.
Budget. And I would send out, see if you can send out for some of those bids, just so then you can start getting them. And if you even have ideas of looking at it and thinking, oh, okay, let's try this. If the whole thing does need to be redone.
We'll talk to the people that do it.
Okay.
This was a lower of 2 options, so.
Okay. All right.
But when that time comes, we'll check into it.
Okay.
So you'll see it on this CIP sheet. I will be adding it, and I'll put it probably to 2021, but I'll show a negative use of cash. That's what we were doing. It wasn't borrowed.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is discussion and consideration of a motion to approve a contract for sidewalk repairs in downtown.
We have, I believe, 17 different areas where we have settlement, trip hazards, holes, brick pavers that are deteriorating. So it's an unsafe situation. And we're proposing to repair all those and put stamped colored concrete in where the block pavers were, similar to what we did in front of Senior Tomas.
Yeah, that's red. It's got that red color.
Right.
I don't know if it's paint or just dye.
It's actually full color concrete that they put a dye on top to give it a variation in color.
Okay. How much concrete is being redone?
I'd have,
I mean, you don't have to give me the answer. I didn't email you on it. I was just gonna, I know that they've proposed with us. I'll wait until we have a motion on it to get into it. I'm just gonna ask one question.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize the repair of miscellaneous concrete work downtown. You made the motion, you have the floor if you want it.
Yeah, a couple questions I have, but I mean, to your question, I think on a page down here, it's got all the square footage, so you can see for the concrete. Add it up, I don't know how much it adds up totally, but, only question too, and I haven't seen Senior Tomas's, but I don't know, what's the difference in cost of just repairing the concrete versus doing stamped and colored?
I don't have that at this time. But it was a decision somewhat based on the bid as a beautification process for downtown, that they go with the block pavers originally, but the colored concrete to just give it some more aesthetically pleasing. There's also been a suggestion that we also do by the bank on North Avenue. Their block pavers are deteriorating also. And in front of the flower garden where they have a grass area between the sidewalk and curb and the terrace. And it's been asked that we do that also. That will be in the next year, that won't be this year.
I do have a question, comment. We have been looking at getting our back patio, which is concrete, redone because it's all cracked in Rio. And we were gonna do the stamped colored because that's what we have now. The color does not last. It costs a lot more money to do stamped and colored. And in our quote, it dropped it by over half. To
Yeah.
have it stamped and colored. And we were told that it just doesn't last as long.
This does, because it's full color all the way through the concrete.
Okay.
And it's also on the curb to sidewalk is what they're doing, so there's not as much traffic going in there.
I know it looks nice. I just want something that if we're going to do it and spend the money, that it's, I think it's odd that it's just on one area. I mean, we don't have it through all downtown.
That's what we're working towards.
It's on
Well-
East Cap, all the way out to
You're
Church.
talking about those that looks like bricks.
Yeah, on each crosswalk, it's on both
I know
sides.
the crosswalks, correct.
It won't be everywhere, it's just where the crosswalks are downtown is the only colored part. The rest is straight gray.
Right.
So a very small portion of this is actually stamped colored.
And how long has that lasted?
We've had it on the bridges for at least 5 years, and we remove snow and we shovel it, and it looks very good.
Anyone else?
Obviously, you just sat in the 2-hour meeting before this where we were discussing roads, we were discussing all of this. You see, obviously, the consensus across the board to try to be as fiscally responsible and conservative as we can. In your best opinion, and what you do all day, is this the best utilization of our money to add this accent?
That's not my call, that would be a board call. I'm just making it look like it does now, and we have the colored textured concrete in other areas of downtown, so it keeps it consistent.
I mean, if I could just add, and that can help with this, I just want to give a brief history. And I'm only Robin to answer that part of that question. because I want the board to be cognizant of this. Some of you know better than I do, especially Mike and Ann, you're gonna know better than I, but the board, at first they had actual pavers that they put in what would normally be the lawn area between the sidewalk and the road. The board went with like pavers. Well, that got all wiggy womp. They started breaking. It just turned into, the work wasn't necessarily the best. They started dipping in. It just got really.
They deteriorate.
Yeah, they deteriorate. So that happened, but they wanted to do something to make it look nice. So throughout the village, I don't know exactly how many places, but for the last 5 or 6 years, they've been doing this stamped concrete. Now, if we want to change, we can. I just want everybody to be cognizant that we're in the middle of a program of making it all look not only aesthetically pleasing, but consistent. And we would just want to think about that because now we're going to have a bunch of patches of this colored concrete throughout. We're not replacing it until it needs it, but we're going to have these patches all over without the program being done. It doesn't mean that we can't just decide to stop it. I just want to make sure everybody knows that history on it. It was the previous boards.
They had some input into that also, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. And like I say, I know a lot has changed, but it wasn't necessarily DPW. It was more so it was the boards and the bid that decided that.
What would the difference in the cost be between just regular concrete versus stamped and colored?
He just said he didn't have that.
Yeah.
And a
I
lot
don't
of
think
this
it'll
is
be
not-
that much because these areas are very small. They're like 2 foot by 6 foot,
Okay.
2 foot by 5. I would say maybe it would go down 5%, 10% maybe, because the majority of that concrete is just concrete.
Just trying to save some money, but do it the right way.
Anybody else? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
The next item on the agenda is presentation by Fire Chief in regards to Town of Merton Fire Services. Chief?
All right, thank you, Chief Dave Dean from the Fire Department. Many discussions have taken place in the town of Merton regarding some coverage on their western side of their township and also with the town of Oconomowoc on their eastern side of their township, which is covered by the Stone Bank Fire Department. The township has put out inquiries on what, if anything, that the Village of Hartland or the Merton Fire Department or Lisbon Fire Department or Kochi or Western Lakes, Stone Bank or Lake Country could do to help cover service areas. So there's meetings, as you know, have been going on for the last 2 years, following the county study that was out there, done by the county that we participated in, which put Hartland in a very good position and a very good place with response times, personnel, and commitment to the village. So discussions went along, and we'll get into it again further on. So the bottom line currently is in 2015, the borders were changed under the past chief of the North Lake Fire Department, which was Brian Cull. So Brian Cull changed the borders up a little bit, and we lost some territory. If the town of Merton makes a switch for ambulance and fire coverage in 2020 and goes with the Bark River, which would be the Lisbon Fire Department and the Merton Fire Department, we would have an opportunity to gain some area back that we originally had covered in 2015. And along with that increase in the area, we would receive an $11,000 payment to cover that area, as well as be able to keep the revenue from our ambulance calls in that area. That amounts to about 83 calls per year. So just looking forward to that. We're continually working with the town of Merton to see what direction they're going to go. And again, this would only happen if the town of Merton makes a switch to go with the Bark River or another entity. So it's all up in the air. Lots of discussions, lots and lots of meetings. So, and then the next meeting, I'll show you the areas that would be affected and how we plan on moving forward. Thanks.
I did see, and there was a very small article in the paper where Merton, the town of Merton, was basically saying they kind of wanted to own it and have it just be one source. If they had it their way, in a perfect world, they wanted to get it. They didn't wear this way in the paper,
Yep.
but the
Correct.
point was they want to get it to just one one department.
Correct, and what they would most likely do is contract that whole town of Merton with the Bark River Fire Department, which is Lisbon and Merton. They're gonna move forward with a merger-type situation.
So
And we look-
Lisbon and Merton are merging.
I mean, they're moving forward with that. They're proceeding to continue to discuss that. So the Merton Community Fire Department and the Lisbon Fire Department would merge and become the Bark River Fire Department,
Okay.
potentially. It is not, I mean, there's a lot of things that have to go into, this, to find out exactly what's feasible and what's not. For instance, during our meetings, we looked at Hartland to be involved in the Bark River, and we looked at mill rates and tax rates and capital investments and operating budgets and things that, sorry.
Take your time, take your time.
We looked at things that would best be in the best interest of Hartland. And my heart and my job as the Hartland Fire Chief is always to keep the Village of Hartland number one and in the forefront. And after discussing different formulas and looking at different ways of splitting areas up and equipment and manpower, it just is not feasible at this time for Hartland to become involved in a merger. And as much of an advocate as I am of shared services, it can be done without a merger. You know, like certainly right now we have some of our members that when they're not on shift at Hartland go work a shift at Merton. And we're hoping that that will continue. We're all cross-credentialed, so if one of our members happen to be in Merton or happen to be in Lisbon, they're licensed under their license so that they can perform the work on their ambulance, even though our ambulance isn't there. So there's a lot of great ways, and as you know, we've sold them our ladder truck, and we've sold them our Impala, and we've got their tender over here, but we're not buying, just that we keep over here because they don't have enough manpower to run it. So at the end of the day, it worked out that it's not beneficial for the Hartland Fire Department to be involved in the Bark River merger or any type of other merger at this time because the village has done such a great job with advancing our department and equipment and manpower and really doing a super job to give us the tools that we need to be very successful. So at the end of the day, it wasn't feasible, and I'm not interested in even presenting to the village board an item that would cost us money or that we would supplement another community because that's not our game. We're here to protect our citizens, and you know, if we get called mutual aid or we can help them out, we're happy to do so, but our citizens come first.
Okay.
I will continue to stand on that aspect. Now, if the town of Merton does go into one contract with the Bark River, then they would get the additional monies, and then our money would come from them. So instead of our check coming from the town of Merton, we would continue to get our $72,000 and then another $11,000 on top of that.
Okay. All right.
So I hope that makes sense. And I got a map here. We're going to go through that again. We're going to go through that in more detail. But there is, please understand, there is.
But I guess when we were making some of our decisions, I'm surprised that, you know, we went with paramedic level service, obviously to take care of Hartland, but I'm surprised that Merton would be deciding this right now, as we just became paramedic level. And, you know, in the past, they're like, oh, well, if you're paramedic level service, then yeah, you can just have that, you know, you guys will take care of us. And now all of a sudden they're switching. And I'm kind of surprised that I'm going to make a few phone calls. I'm surprised that their officials haven't called over to ours. I think this board deserves it. And that's not necessarily your fault. I'm surprised that their officials didn't call over here, not once.
And it's been.
Have they called us?
It boiled up July 1st was when we were first notified. We didn't know that there was going to be other entities bidding on the town of Merton. Mm-hmm. And July 1st we found out, and then we had the holidays, and then we had the town of Merton board meeting on July 8th. So we had to do some refiguring and step up our game a little bit. And I also felt that it's extremely important for Hartland to keep their hat in the game so that we don't necessarily lose the portions of the town of Merton that we currently cover, let alone that revenue, but also to protect ourselves and our citizens, because you're talking then about another entity coming to Arrowhead or Swallow School and Merton Avenue and North Avenue, where it's right in our back door. So those citizens deserve our service. But again, lots and lots of moving parts to this, and it's been.
With that being said, I want to make sure to say this publicly. if Arrowhead, Swallow, or any part of Merton is covered by anyone other than Hartland, talk to Merton. Don't come talk to Hartland, because we already tried, and we're trying. I'm just saying it because it's very important. That is that town's decision, not Hartland's.
Correct.
We're here and willing to help.
Yep, absolutely.
But if that's how the town wants to go, I just want to, it's nothing on Merton. If that's what's better for Merton, Merton can do that. Also, I want to make it very clear, and I guess I'm going to ask you, Chief, no matter how that goes, even if we do lose Arrowhead and all that, we have the equipment and the manpower. Is Hartland residents going to get any less service?
No, sir.
No. I just wanted to make it so at the end of the day, this is more about the contracting and what makes sense. In certain areas, Hartland will lose no service.
Correct.
Or not level of service or the equipment we're using, anything. It'll be here.
Correct. And just to add a little bit more to that, the current residents in the town of Merton and the portions and sections that the Village of Hartland covers are getting paramedic service. There is no other paramedic service in the town of Merton.
Correct.
So
There's
if
a lot
there's
of
other
moving
paramedic
parts
services that come in, there's a special assessed fee, anywhere between $400 and $800 that would be billed to that patient separately from the ambulance bill.
Right.
So I think our residents and the areas that we serve are extremely satisfied. We continue to get positive comments. So just
Chief,
in
is
an
it true,
effort,
as those two, Lisbon is a municipal fire department, is that correct?
yes,
Or
township,
and
town fire
Merton,
department. And
even though it's the
Merton-
Merton community, that's actually a corporate, it's a not-for-profit organization, but it's a corporate fire department, correct?
That's a private fire company.
Right, it's just
Yep.
like Lake Country, I believe, even though there's municipalities in it.
I couldn't
Oh, it's
speak for
even
them, but
different?
Stone Bank is private.
Yeah, it's
so-
some type of corporation.
Yes.
Okay.
So there is lots of moving parts in this system, and we're.
Okay, I
we're
just wanted to
doing-
make sure, that's important also. It's not necessarily
Absolutely.
that the town, Heartland is funded by its taxpayers.
Correct.
And these other, they make it on the fees that they collect from the municipalities that are involved in, which there's nothing wrong with. I just think it's very important though a corporate fire department, you have to get as many fees as possible, where a municipal, it keeps on going even if we're not getting additional fees. Not saying we don't like extra revenue, but.
Right. And we have a great working relationship with all the fire departments that are involved. And it's just unfortunate that people want change and they want a higher level of service. We decided in the village that we were going to have a higher level of service, and we did it. We accomplished it, and we're operating at the paramedic level. So.
Yep.
Others have seen that, and again, the Hartland Fire Department is in great shape. Response times, on-scene times are very good, and we will never, I as chief took an oath to protect this village, and I would never do anything to change that, as the Village of Hartland is my number one concern.
Right. Awesome. Thanks, Chief.
Yep.
Okay. Next item, we have a discussion and consideration of a banner policy.
Turn it down a little bit more. It's warm.
Is that thermostat broken? It
So
should say 55. No, I'm kidding.
I made a couple updates, but ultimately tonight, or whenever you guys do want to finish that, we do have to just, ultimately, I think there's some highlighted sections in the updated one where I say the following events are eligible. I would have you direct staff for any of the items before that as far as minimum thickness. Let us put all of that together based on public work standards. But truly, and I think the approval of the content, I don't think you're going to argue with advertising about an offer, illegal goods, that type of thing. But ultimately, I think we need a list of who or when or what. The vertical banners down below, that was kind of in discussions with the bid. I don't think I'd worry about that right now, but, trying to figure out the who, what, when of everything else. Cost, if there's any cost. If you want us to find some companies that might hang the banner in our place to see what that might cost. And,
Bids.
well, I'm talking about maybe we find two companies that are willing to hang those banners and say, what would it cost? And if they say $250, we just have them work with whatever these events are that you have approved. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
The event people will be paying that cost.
They'll still have to come in to get a permit, though. I think they
Correct.
still have to go through a permit
Absolutely.
process, or it gets too loosey.
But I'm just,
No,
there's numerous events. I mean, I had I'm not going to list events because I don't want for us to say yes or no unless you guys want to, but there are many other tent events or bar events that there's youth sports, there's numerous things. It's just a matter of what the board wants.
The Hartland Neighborhood Night Out, is that a bid event?
Yeah, well, at the end of Village. I thought the bid had something to do with it, but I'd have to look.
They do, they support it. And my question for the concert and movies, how do we put all those on there?
I was just mentally thinking of things that
I mean, I agree, but you can't put all that on there. People, it's too much.
I just put it on there because I was trying to think of Village
Right.
events that we did, and I thought, you know what, if Kelly has some creative way to put, don't forget Thursday nights in the park or
That's what I
whatever.
would think. Thursday nights are referred to the website for details
Yeah.
or something like that.
I think that the big one there, and I don't know if there's other things going on, but you may have the grand, like, opening of the beer garden. You know what I mean? I don't know when that usually starts, but that Thursday night is always that first Thursday is a big
It was a big night.
night. But we can tweak this as we go.
Right.
No, I
know-
agree. I think we gotta make a decision, get it going.
I think we have to
And-
start
and-
from somewhere. I think less is more. I think as this goes on, we're going to do things. I would like to see some bids come out to find out private contracting, and keep in mind, it's not that DPW doesn't do a great job, it's that we take care of our people well. And I really mean this.
Taking away
If someone
manpower,
gets
yeah.
hurt, it's our insurance that covers that, and that's workman's comp. And I'm not trying to take their bit, they have enough work. But I mean, all the things that go into that, if it's another company,
But again,
I
really,
have empathy, but if someone falls out of a cherry picker and gets hurt, it's still $250 if that's what the contract price is. You know, and I'm just saying, I want us to think about that, and it does cost us a lot of money because we have very good people that have a lot of skills that are hanging up banners, but it does cost the village. I mean, if you include the time away and the vehicles, and I mean, you're looking at between $600 and $1,000,
And
that's
what's not getting done.
it's $1,000 for put up and take down.
No, I'm all for
Chief?
bids.
If I could just make one comment, as a citizen, Dave Dean, 407 East Capitol, very old-fashioned, as you know my house, and I love the banners. Love them, love them, love them. But have we taken a consideration of maybe a permanent scrolling sign somewhere that would be here forever, and you could change it digitally? And I love the banners. I love the feel of the banners. I think it's cool. It's old town atmosphere.
Right.
But if it's financially not feasible, I can't imagine a scrolling sign being a whole lot, over, you look at 3-4 years, it's gonna be paid for, but.
Right.
Just a thought, I'd like it huge by Hartbrook Drive, and then they can see it on 16.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
I would too. I mean, I'd like the signs a little bigger there so people can see we're
I
there.
didn't know Mike
I
Badani
do want us to
still-
be mindful of, like, for instance, I use two examples. For the event, the hometown celebration, traditionally it's always traditionally the last Sunday of June. So I'm assuming that would stay up, obviously, through the week. Just want us to be mindful that the street dance then only has specifically 3
About
weeks.
a week, yeah.
So, and we're saying in here that they can't be up longer than 3 weeks. So, we really want to be mindful about the take up and the take down to make sure that the next event has the actual time that they have been told that they can have. So I just want us to be mindful of that. On behalf of whatever event it is. And again, I mean, that's time and
Sure.
staff. So I just want us to just know that. I also just want us to be a little understanding that, again, to Ryan's point, we're gonna open a can of worms. And so we need to be prepared as a board, one voice moving forwards as to what we're saying for all the other organizations that are gonna come in, because everybody that they do good for the, community, they're all doing great things for the community.
Absolutely.
Right, so we wanna be supportive of all the work that they're doing, but we just wanna make sure we're stating the reason why.
Yep.
That these are the only chosen ones moving forwards.
So I got a call from.
Well, most of these are Village of Hartland.
Well, those are all I put. I got a call from St. Charles. I got a call about the sidewalk sale. I got a call
See,
about.
it's already starting, yeah.
Well, no. What,
And it'll continue.
the only one on here is the street dance. That's a non-village event.
I
That's
stopped.
the only
I didn't
one.
know. I didn't want to get into
Right.
opening the can of worms.
Right.
That was up to if you guys. Like I said, St. Charles. There's so many. Palmer's Tent. There's oodles of.
There's
events.
tons, and it's all great work, so I just want us to be mindful. That's all.
Okay.
I think it's looking great, and I appreciate the time that's been put into it.
Is there, I mean,
Let's just keep going the way we are.
could, even if I just had those 5, could
Yeah.
organizations appeal to the village board?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, I
yeah.
think so.
Sure.
That's where I
I
struggle.
mean, yeah, do you know how many appeals we're gonna have?
Sure.
Yeah, but if we
Ton.
put parameters in there, I mean, we've got to remember that we have to remind them it is going to be $250 or whatever it is to put the sign up. That's an additional cost. They have to buy the sign. And are we going to charge them for having the sign up?
Well, the
I mean, there's money involved in it, and
I had
that's
thought about it, for profit, not for profit, different prices, but
but the only one that's actually being charged.
Let's
is
be, here's the real thing here.
I mean,
If we do anything
Oh,
other
because
than
it's the
village or the
village, it's
bid,
us.
there's other organizations that
But the
then say,
chamber is
okay, I
not the
see
village.
other organizations. If we
Chamber is
stick
a
it to
nonprofit.
just
so
the
they said they'd
village.
pay.
we'll raise the chamber.
Oh, we're overlapping each other, but if we have just the village, then we are on firm ground to say, no, it can't be done.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So when we say, oh, we're gonna open up a can of worms, if we stick to just the village, the bid's part of the village, if we stick to just that, then at least for now, we're okay, and it buys us time. We got a banner policy up, and we can add more and talk more about whatever we may wanna change. Yeah,
So take chamber out.
I can't imagine, I mean, for
Well, the
$1,000
village is
bucks.
always a supporter of the street dance, major supporter.
it's a street dance is one of our
This is
Well,
Hartland.
and
It's
your
important.
Oh, I know, it's
trick or treat
huge.
that
Huge.
chamber puts together too, you know.
The
That's
what?
the trick or treat night. That's a big one. I don't think
business
anything else is
trick-or-treat.
going on during that
a
time.
business trick or treat's
Yeah.
huge. I mean,
Let's leave it the way it is for now.
I-
I do think you should add business
Worry
trick or
about it
treat.
next time.
Wait a
That's
second,
a
real
big
fast.
one.
There's
That is a
nothing
big
really
one.
in that time frame anyways, so that could be
Right.
number
You know,
6.
it'll be,
Let's leave it the way it is for now,
No, let's put in the trick or treat.
as written.
Somebody can make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Village of Hartland banner policy as is.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the banner policy as it is in front of us.
We can always.
Any more discussion,
You
sorry?
can amend.
You can amend it.
When
Yeah,
I
you
get
can make
calls,
an amendment.
Yeah.
when I get calls, I will let people know if this is approved, that they can always write a letter to the village board. I can share it with you, and somebody can ask to have it put on the agenda. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, let's just get it going.
Yeah.
Any other? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is a consideration of an appointment to the Park and Recreation Board. It's not from lack of preparation, it's that there's more work that needs to be done, and there's more people that I have yet to contact that I have not been able to. I also still need to have another conversation with the Commissioner of the Park Board, so I am not able to make a recommendation to the board tonight. So I have to postpone that. I'm not postponing indefinitely, but for now, I'm gonna say I'm postponing until the next meeting. And I will try to get it in front of you guys, and also when I make that recommendation, I will try to get that information so that it can be in the packet, so then if you guys wanted to make calls, because ultimately it's the board voting on the person, it's only me recommending them, but the board is the one that actually makes that approval.
Understood.
And we've never done that in the past, but that's another reason, I think that that's appropriate that that be done that way. It shouldn't like just be thrown on the board, like, hey, here's who I'm nominating. So with that, if the board will allow, we'll just move past that item. It'll be postponed until next meeting. Do we need a vote on that? I think we do. No? Okay. Then we got announcements.
I'll start. Oh, Chief.
What's it about?
Huh?
What's it about?
Street dance. I just want to say the street dance was crazy with the weather and everything that happened and all the stuff that we were up against. The DPW set everything up for us, all the perimeters, the chief of police, the chief of the fire department, DPW all met prior to see the safest surroundings around in a very hot day that we all melted on the sidewalk. Then moving forward to the actual day of the event, the police were with us the whole time on the phone, calling the weather to see if this was going to go or not go. We finally decided we were going to move ahead with it. Fire department there, filling up water jugs and also helping block the street. The people in the village that actually did show up, and it became a nut house. They loved seeing the police and the fire department there. I just think it makes such a big difference, and we hear about it every single year about our fire department and our police department sorry DPW were not there that they saw. I mean, had to wear your uniforms, I think. But I mean, it's a big kudos to everyone that in the village to make that happen, along with the chamber to make that event happen, because it was great. It was just another really fun night. So,
Well said.
Any other announcements?
Sorry, just a couple of quick things. Chief of the Fire Department, Dave Dean. Along that line, I just, as always, want to give a shout out to the fire department. They, on that Saturday, they handled the touch truck. They handled the street dance with 2 ambulances and the ladder truck. We had a booth, as you know, the last 5 days at the county fair for recruitment. And we also logged 80 hours of first aid at the county fair, running the first aid tent and booth. So we were spread thin, and not to any of my surprise, the fire department members came through again and managed to handle all the events. And then just on a quick note, our fire department experienced a really difficult call yesterday. They're dealing with some emotional and mental situations. We had a double drowning, and neither one survived. So it was very tough on them. Please keep them in their thoughts. And then this morning, we found out our chaplain's wife passed away. So, and we're very close with our chaplain, and he's very close with us. So fire department has got some emotional stuff going on. Just keep them in their thoughts and prayers. We'll get through it. We're a great team. In fact, our crews are at a critical incidents trustee briefing right now. So we'll get through it. Just wanted to keep you updated.
Thanks, Chief. Anyone else? I had a question that came from a citizen at the Plan Commission meeting where, we have these developments that go on, and right now there's a proposed development, which already came in front of the board, but up near Lutheran, what is it? Lake Country Lutheran. And, but one of the citizens came up, and she's very nice, but after the meeting, she just very nicely was like, how does this happen that something just comes up out of nowhere? And she also was like, how can one developer, it looks like they're just taking over the town. Now this developer just keeps on developing. And I guess I do want to I'm saying this for the board, and also for the people that are watching and the people in attendance. When someone purchases land and they come to the village and say, what can I do with it? I want people to understand that at the end of the day, it really isn't any different than if I want to put an addition on my garage. Basically what it is you look at, does it meet the specifications of what can be done? And if it does, and architecturally, it doesn't just look horrible, I'm going to get a permit for it and it's going to be fine. When it's a developer, we do the exact same thing, and that's what we do at the Plan Commission level, and that's what the village board does when we're deciding on things. It's just on a much grander scale. So when someone asks, how can this developer keep on coming and doing this, the real answer is because they see a fantastic opportunity to put their product in Hartland. And honestly, that's what it is. Is it to make money? Yes. Why does a restaurant come to Hartland? Because it's a fantastic opportunity to make a profit. Why does any business come to Hartland? Because it's a great place, and also because they like it. I think that the developer that we're working with right now, and we work with multiples, enjoys it, but it's no different than someone wanting to do something in their backyard. I know sometimes people don't like as we grow. Someone told me once, you're never going to stop the growth, but you can be involved and pay attention, and in that way, you can control it. You get to be a part of it. Just stopping it will never work, but I encourage people to continue to come to the meetings. We do have open ears. We do listen. Call your trustees. Call myself. Call Administrator Bailey. That's what we're here for. We're trying to be as transparent as we can. Please call and ask how to get set up for the automatic agendas. I just wanted to take the time to say that because I think everybody on this board is working very hard that we want you to know where the days of anything being hidden or seeming hidden are gone. We want it out there. That's why we spend so much time and have, the meetings are so much longer than they were, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So please contact us. I just wanted to say that because it is really, we're trying to get a process done and we're trying to inform people, and I think everybody on the board is trying to do that. So that's all I have. Ryan, any announcements? Nothing?
Maybe it'll come to me after we close.
Okay. Save it for next week.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting. All in favor? Aye. This meeting's adjourned.